Hello, everybody. My name is Michael Arias, and this is my 160D2 Living the Good Life Humanity's Perspective on Culture and Community. This is my applied narrative presentation, and let's just dive straight into it. For my big questions, I wanted to know more about justice, punishment, and how they play a role in deciding who we are as people. Should we be punished for our actions, and if so, how can we carry this justice out for ourselves? Perhaps maybe mythologies can show us how to deal with the troubles and mistakes that we make. As it is very well known, mythology goes into the punishments for people who have been evil or went against the laws of society. Now, who is my myth? My myth will be Khonsu, the moon god of Egypt, and that's because I want to talk about his modern adaptations and also talk about the great character arc that he goes throughout his ancient Egyptian stories. Khonsu is translated from the traveler back and forth or the night traveler. This is mainly because of his connection as representing the moon, who travels over the night sky throughout the night. He has been shown with the head of a bird to symbolize his power and authority over the sky, or being a child with one prominent braid of hair to symbolize his youth. But in both depictions, he always has a crescent moon on top to show his connection with the moon. Now, early stories of Khonsu depict him as a boogeyman of sorts. Stories like the Cannibal Hymn, where Khonsu was sent out by the pharaoh to eat other gods and receive their power for the pharaoh so that he may have more power in the afterlife. And even other tales describe Khonsu as a bloodthirsty god or a heart-eating monster. So why am I talking about a killer god bent on violence when asking about justice? Well, I want to get into Khonsu's redemption, as during the golden era of ancient Egypt, new tales were told of Khonsu as society progressed. He was now part of a divine triad of Amun, a god of creation and masculinity, and Mut, a goddess of fertility. After Thoth, a god of knowledge and moon, restored the eye of Horus, all moon gods became associated with healing. This in turn led to Khonsu becoming a god of healing together because of his connections to the moon and his ability to scare away bad spirits because of his past of being a god devourer. He would also show up in the afterlife as a part of the judging process for one's heart. He would appear as a bamboo, similar to how Thoth would. Along with this, he also had control over the book of the year, and it had the names of everyone who would pass away for each year. So if you gave him your praises, supposedly he would not write down your name. More tales have been told about Khonsu and his ways of healing and protecting others. Eventually, all these tales combined gave enough importance to Khonsu that he received his own temple alongside his mother and father, and was constructed under the pharaoh Ramses III in 12th century BC. Along with this, it seems that despite his own origins, he was able to be forgiven by the Egyptians for all the good that he has done. Now, Khonsu has been depicted in modern media pretty well as of lately, most commonly known from the Marvel Action Comics of Moon Knight, an anti-hero who is granted superpowered abilities by Khonsu himself, and is also known as the Fist of Khonsu, who goes out and serves on the behalf of the moon god. So Moon Knight has had multiple identities, but his most common is that of Mark Spector, a former mercenary who was on a mission in Egypt but got fatally wounded in the temple of Khonsu. And there, Khonsu had brought him back with his healing abilities. And in return, Mark Spector has now become the Moon Knight, serving justice and fighting those who wish to do evil under the moonlight. So, yeah, Moon Knight has been well known as an anti-hero because of his brutal methods of taking down bad guys. That's because of his past as a mercenary and someone who has violent tendencies. And I believe that this also kind of aligns with Khonsu himself, as it makes sense that someone who has such a dark past would also want a servant who has had a dark past and aligns with him better. Lastly, I want to mention how in Marvel there's Norse, Greek mythologies that also exist, such as Thor and Zeus, but I like the take on Egyptian mythology where instead of the gods being the people in power, it's their servants that they grant power to. The main similarities that arise from both the ancient and modern depictions of Khonsu is his willingness to take on the mantle of the moon god. That, despite his dark past, he may feel responsible for those who seek protection under his moon. You can even see parallels with the Moon Knight, how after given a second chance, Mark Spector has used his new abilities alongside the skills that he has had from his life as a mercenary for good and to save the lives of others. So, the story of Khonsu has shown it's never too late to change our ways, even if we had made mistakes. But what's important is that we grow and learn from it. Khonsu was able to be remembered as a god of healing and protection, even though his origins would say that he was a bloodthirsty god killer. Maybe this is why Egyptians loved their gods, as they weren't perfect and had made mistakes just like people do. It gives them character in a way that the superheroes of our times do. They give us someone to look up to and to give hope for. And as Khonsu and his ending, even though he was bred for war and made to be a soldier, I believe he is now at peace with himself and has found joy by being a guardian and protector of the people. Now, going back to my big question, I believe that these stories tell me that when it comes to justice, there's no one else who can solve it better than ourselves. We all know our mistakes, and we all know how to fix them. The question, I feel like, is are we willing to fix them? And it's not a matter of can we, it's a matter of should we, and whether or not there is any way to help others in their justice that they want to seek out for themselves. As we have seen before, despite Khonsu being born in darkness, he was able to end his story living in the light. So the next time you feel like you've made a mistake or there's no coming back from the next day, just remember the tales of people who have been in that state of anger and hate and how they have redeemed themselves through doing their best at a second chance in life. Here are the works that I cited. Feel free to check them out as they go more in depth with either the Egyptian or the modern side of Khonsu. And I hope you enjoyed my take on this presentation.